Legal chain of title is basically a fancy way of saying who owns the creative IP. IP stands for intellectual property, which is basically anything creative that comes from your intellect onto the page, onto a film, onto a TV show. It's an idea, it's a story, it's a script, anything. How do you break it down as to who owns it? This can feel a little bit uncomfortable to have these conversations, especially if you're more of a creative person and you don't like to talk about money very much, but figuring out the ownership of a creative project before you start working on it at all is incredibly important, because if you try to have the conversation later, it's not going to go as well. So legal chains of title can be many documents, so I'm just going to outline a couple of the main ones. So the main key one in terms of script is the script option agreement, which basically says who owns the rights to the script. Usually it starts with the writer, the creator, and usually it's a producer or a production company that options it. Whenever you're making a feature film, each feature film needs its own limited company created, and then the script ownership needs to be transferred to that limited company, and all of the liability goes through that company, so it's not one individual or one production company that takes on the liability of each project. When you create a limited company, then you need to create an operating agreement for that limited company, which basically says who's in the company and who has ownership in that company. It's very important to break down the ownership of a creative project in terms of what percentage that people own of it. So usually with feature films, it's split 50-50. So 50% stays with the creative team and 50% goes to the investors. So this can be private equity investors, this can be sales agents, this can be distributors, it can be a bunch of different things. On the creative side, it's usually the producers, usually the director, maybe the writer, maybe a key crew member or a key actor sometimes has back-end percentage. It can be all of that and many more, which is why chains of title can be very complicated but are so very important. So go do a bit of research, make sure you have these conversations as early as you can, and as you bring on more people onto your team, it's going to have to change and things are going to shift. Different percentages are going to change as more money comes into the situation. Again, you're going to have to be flexible, but it's so important to outline this as clearly as possible. So when your film is a huge, wild, runaway success and you're making boatloads of money, it's very clear as to how that money is divided up in between all of the people. So good luck, go have an adventure. See you on the next one.